Max, welcome to the Presidio Bitcoin member spotlight. You're familiar face here, especially in the studio. Normally positioned over here a little bit, but
spot today. I'll have to do my best DK impersonation.
that's right. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. We wanted to certainly get more behind the scenes of Max, Hivemind, and what it's like to be at Presidio Bitcoin. So
Yeah,
we'll pause there. I know you've been involved here kind of even since we opened the space, and we're kind of one of the founding members in the sense of kind of creating up the idea and kind of collecting the initial set of folks that we have at the space. So generally speaking, how's it been? How has it been seeing Presidio Bitcoin go from an idea to getting the lease to now what it is today? How has it influenced your day to day running Hivemind, and how nice is it to have something like Presidio Bitcoin back in San Francisco?
first of all, Presidio Bitcoin has been a blessing. And I mean that not only, sure, it's been awesome for work and it's going to continue to be great for work, but just personally, like, man, if I never take another Zoom in my entire life, I'm good. Like after years of being trapped post-COVID, oh my God, it was horrible. And especially for those of you who don't know, so I, was, in Mexico for a long time. I moved back to San Francisco right before the pandemic. And I love San Francisco. San Francisco is my favorite city in the whole world when it's open. But during COVID, it got really, really bad here. A lot of the Bitcoin community, this was the hub sort of pre-block size war. So for those who aren't familiar, in 2017, there was a big block size war. Before that, San Francisco was the hub. And like historically, San Francisco is the hub for every tech thing, right? Like AI, there's a reason it's Silicon Valley, the chips themselves, all that. And then, during COVID and post-COVID and, from the block size wars in 2017 and then post-COVID, it got much worse. San Francisco went full crypto and it was a lot. Anyway, so for many years, I had dreamt of and wanted a space of like, where can the Bitcoiners, like we need for Bitcoiners, by Bitcoiners, like, where's our community? Like we were, wandering the desert, so to speak, for a long time. And yeah, and I had been throwing this idea out to a lot of people. It's like, guys, we need a space. We need a space. And, there's some interest, but like, okay, it's complex to find a good spot and get the funding and all this stuff. And, I remember it was actually at I think it was a Halloween / Bitcoin white paper day party. It was either that or maybe, no, it must have been the Happening party. One of those where I ran into Steve and some other folks and I was like, hey man, we really need to figure out a way to make this happen. He's like, well, I think I may have the guy that can make this happen. Steve, as you know, is super on top of shit. And he was like, let's make this happen quickly. And so I just threw out there, I was like, let's have dinner at my apartment. And Mark came, a bunch of other folks. Some of them are not, here now, like the Bitwise team, which we should get them more involved. Anyways, one thing led to another. And like from that dinner, Steve, Haley, eventually when you came on, and Mark himself, like kudos to that dude. Like he's not just a funder, like he did the hard work. They made this happen. And oh my God, it's been way more than I could have ever dreamed. Like if you had told me like, hey, you'll get like a tiny spot for some Bitcoiners to hang out and do some stuff. And then we literally come in and you guys can't see this here now. It looks like we're just doing this kind of like on the fly, but we have one of the nicest podcast studios I've ever seen in the whole world. Like if you told me this thing was going to be our podcast studio, I'd say you're absolutely shitting me. Like, you're trying to sell me some ETH or something. Come on. And anyways, it's been amazing, like getting to like hang out with people, getting to work with you, getting to work with the startups, the open source devs. Like,
And one of my favorite things is we always have like, I don't know, 6 to like 12 people go to lunch every day. And it just feels like you can have those conversations every single day, which to your point, you're walking the desert by yourself. You're sitting on a Zoom call.
And the thing is like, also like, there's a lot of great Bitcoin events around the world, but like now, I'll occasionally travel for things, but I travel much less because it's like, dude, like, some of the smartest people in the world are here every day. Like we just like, you take that for granted. We're just like friends and, chit chatting. And by the way, that's where stuff gets done for business, personal, whatever. It's like when you're, if everything is rushed into calls and meetings, it's very transactional, formal.
Yep.
But if you're just having a 2-hour lunch because some great idea came up, that's where the brilliance actually happens and manifests. And so, yeah, it's awesome.
And have you seen that happen live here in Presidio Bitcoin?
All the time.
Yeah, I certainly have. But
yeah. I'm curious your answer to that. But like, look, a lot of the early stage startups, like the Lexi guys, like, I'm fortunate to work with them, and like that's great because like you can just go tap them on the shoulder. Let's go whiteboard. Yeah. You see what Jesse and Eric are doing here every day, and like those guys, man, like they're just homies, right? Like, and like I really hope and I think they will build something amazing too. But like, yeah, you get to see the motivations behind. You get to see humans being humans and
Yeah.
doing amazing stuff, and it's awesome. The open source stuff, like forget even the startups. Like we have many of the best open source developers, and shout out to Steve and Spiral. I mean, for our conferences, but also just like every random week, I feel like, I'll walk in and it's like, here's whatever. Maybe not Greg Maxwell anymore, although he's come to some things. But like, here's like the best open source devs just chilling.
Yeah.
And then next week you'll come in and it's like, here's, I won't dox him, but like the founder of a major multi-billion-dollar exchange, and it's not the most casino one either, a real Bitcoiner, and it's just awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
Yeah, the Lexi guys actually told me last month we did a spotlight like this too, that they're growing, right? They're trying to hire talent, and Max told me we're not even going to try and hire anyone. We're just going to wait for them to walk through the door.
Yeah,
so like, because this is the place that we know the best talent and the best people are going to be. If they're in Silicon Valley or nearby, or they're going to be a visitor to Silicon or to Presidio Bitcoin, it's just going to happen. And they ended up hiring someone who did exactly that. He came through for a couple of weeks, visited from around the globe, and he told me, literally last month, he was like, "Yep, we hired him." And he was like, "We just needed to wait because we knew they were going to come through Presidio Bitcoin." So, how is that influence what you're doing? Because you're obviously on the investment side, you run your own fund, Hivemind. Have you seen that happen as well when you're saying, look, I just need to be at Presidio Bitcoin because this is going to be the best minds are going to walk through the door, the best potential, investments and strategy startups are going to be started here.
Yeah.
Have you seen that real life come to life?
Yeah. I mean, I would say first of all, we're just in the early days, right? And so this does take time to like see, the companies really get, a lot of companies form and mature and everything, but I'm very bullish. I think a lot of the stuff that's coming out here, and even before the new companies are coming out. One thing I should also mention is a lot of my startups. So for those of you who don't know, I run a fund called Hivemind Ventures. I don't just like shit talk on PBJ with DK and Steve every week. Although some days it feels like that, but so I've invested in this point between the two funds. Usually I'm absolute first money in, right? So, writing checks usually have like $250K to $1 million. Very first money in. I love that. The sort of cowboy days. I have no desire to ever scale to be a growth stage fund or anything like that. It's just certainly not my personality type or interest, but I love being there at the beginning. And I think that's where I can really help a founder too. Really help a lot with, figuring out who's the right people to hire. Is this the right market to target? Should we be thinking bigger? That's one of the biggest things I think you can really help a founder with at the beginning is like, hey, you're thinking, like I was just on the phone or on a call with someone, like, well, the thing we're doing today with solar is pretty good. I was like, cool. What if you drop everything and build 1 terawatt scale grids to power compute? And they're just like, oh, okay. And they had good reasons why not to do that. But sometimes I think you need the actual push. And that's something I think I'm good at and I can help a lot with. So that's the stage I like playing at. A lot of the companies I've invested in probably 50 across the funds. Now they're interested in moving here. And so without doxing anyone, I expect at least one of my companies is going to move here in the next 3 months. And I expect many more to follow after that. So I think this is going to keep becoming a hub. In terms of new company formation, absolutely. Like the beautiful thing is we start with people that are just like hacking. And I think the best, most interesting ideas usually come from playing first, right? So maybe you're an open source dev and you find some giant secret, but then you need to partner with the dude that's going to be able to, or the dudette who's going to be able to monetize that secret, right? And so I think this is a really interesting place where you can see both really creative hackers come together, but also people that like understand, like we're trying to build a business. We need to know how to monetize this. And it's early stages. I will say this. I mean, my preference is to back people here, of course, because we get to work together. It's just so much more sort of high fidelity, fun, interesting when you get to work together. And I also do believe there's a reason Silicon Valley is one, like I'm not one of these people. It's like, oh, just because you're right contrarian on Bitcoin once, it doesn't mean you need to be contrarian on everything. It's like oftentimes a consensus is correct. And Silicon Valley has been the center of technology forever. I don't think that's changing. So this is definitely a big place for me. At the same time, I do think Bitcoin is global, right? And so while I hope a lot of my companies will come and visit here, come to events here, hack here, I'll invest anywhere. And I've still done a bunch of deals. I've invested in like 7 or 8 regional exchange, kind of think of like rivers, and then they run lightning nodes for their regions.
Yep.
And there you need to be in Mexico or in Brazil or in the Philippines, wherever you are. So I would expect that, over time I'll do more stuff here in San Francisco, but, I probably would still do at least 50% global, and hopefully they'll come in and work with us here.
Yeah, fantastic. We've had such incredible events, and I actually know, we're throwing an event that you're leading the charge on in November here. So not quite for the October spotlight, but it's we should certainly get it out. But why don't you talk more about the Type One Summit that you're putting together, why you're so bullish on it, and why Presidio Bitcoin is the spot where you're saying, hey, this is a great place to have the event.
Yeah.
And how Presidio Bitcoin has helped kind of put that together with you.
Well, I've often joked that I'm one of the only Bitcoin and solar maximalists that I know. And it's been historically somewhat of an unlikely combo, but I think it's becoming more and more mainstream. More people understand what's happening. I got very solar pilled in the early 2010s, just watching curves. I love watching curves. Every doubling of cumulative capacity of solar installed, the levelized cost of electricity has fallen. At that time, we thought 20%. It's been more like 40%. Batteries, similar cost curve, double the cumulative capacity installed. Levelized cost of energy, like full trip storage, has fallen like 25%. So basically, to make it simple, you basically see Moore's law like curves with solar and batteries. And you just keep doubling that thing.
Yeah.
And, I always think it's kind of like the joke with the bell curve. It's right. You've got the middle, people are like, well, that's not going to hold up because of this shortage. And it's like the dude on the left and the dude on the right are just like, you see a curve, works for decades, bet on the damn
curve. Yeah.
Just play the fucking curve. Come on, man. Just save everyone's time. That's my view on solar and batteries. It's much more complex than that. If you want to read my whole thesis, or if you find yourself saying, actually, I don't, then read hivemind.vc/grid. And I say this somewhat tongue in cheek. I think there's going to be a place for nuclear in the future for sure, but it's going to take a while and it's going to be not cost competitive, not anti-natural gas. There are certainly circumstances where that's going to be helpful. But my thesis is solar plus storage is going to get below 2 cents a kilowatt hour all in. To give you a sense, nat gas, we're talking like 7-8 cents a kilowatt hour, so it just undercuts everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can overbuild to the scale where people say, well, there's no way that you can have enough resilience or redundancy. It's like, well, if you open your mind and think we're not building a 10 megawatt project, we're building a 10 gigawatt project. And then one day a terawatt project.
Yep.
And by the way, the biggest sort of solar maxi in the world is a guy who's, he's done okay for himself and humanity, Elon Musk, right? So Elon is saying very similar things. You can hear him talk about this stuff, why he's all in on solar. So anyway, so that's kind of my solar background. I view Bitcoin as energy-backed money. Shout out to Satoshi Energy, Andrew Myers, and Brock Peterson, who got me down that rabbit hole maybe around 2020. I was already starting to think about this stuff, but really saw Bitcoin as a ledger of tools. They, by the way, are one of the companies I'm most bullish on in the world, Satoshi Energy. They were brokering, sort of between Stranded Wind in West Texas and Bitcoin miners. And now they're doing a lot more other, AI compute. And that's a general thing. You see Crusoe go to AI compute. Basically, all these companies have gone from Bitcoin mining to AI. The revenues are just insane. And it got me extremely bullish on what we can do. Because there's moments, most of history, things are flat. And then there's moments where things just shift. And that's when you got to strike if you want to do something interesting or new, is my opinion. And so what I see happening now is there's so much demand for AI compute. It's literally insane.
Yeah.
Right? You've got Elon and anyone that wants to short Elon, enjoy, saying he wants to build a terawatt of compute, a terawatt. Okay, for context, the grid in Texas, which is the most permissive free market grid there is, 80 gigawatt max load. So we're talking at least an order of magnitude more to build what Elon says for just his company. That says nothing in Microsoft, Google, OpenAI,
Right.
Anthropic, all these guys, AWS. Anyways, and then meanwhile, you have electric vehicles that are, that's all a mega trend. You have heat pumps going electric. You have quantum computing in the future, something we touched on here at Presidio Bitcoin in our last event. You have all these different basically draws on electricity, which, by the way, the more you install and the faster you install solar batteries, the cheaper it all gets. So when you put all these different pieces of the puzzle together, my biggest takeaway, and you can hear me talk about this more, we can maybe link to this in the show notes on the last 2 or 3 Presidio Bitcoin jams ago. But basically the big takeaway is that the grid can't take it. And we need to do to electricity markets what Bitcoin did to money and what the internet did to information, which is free them. And once we do that, I think we can do some pretty incredible things for humanity. So Type 1 Summit comes from the Kardashev scale, science fiction writer. Type 1 is the referring to a civilization that can harness all of the sunlight touching, or all of the energy from its star, in our case, the sun, touching its planet. So Steve and I were going back and forth on this, but it's like 3 to 4 orders of magnitude we have to jump to get to that point. And I think this is going to be a really important moment. I think Bitcoin will probably be the network that these new macro grids, 10 gigawatt plus scale grids are settling on, potentially even supranationally. And it's going to be awesome. So I had this dream, and credit to you and credit to Steve and some early DK, some early believers who didn't think this was, well, I don't know. You could tell me how insane you thought it was. But but who are open to saying, listen, Bitcoin's certainly going to play a role in this. And, a lot of the energy community, frankly, is not thinking big enough, fast enough, and certainly not sort of with a more Bitcoin open source free markets orientation like we have. Let's bring those groups together. Let's get the absolute brightest minds in the world and figure out how we're going to build a terawatt scale grid.
Incredible. Yeah, we'll link to the application and the event in the show notes. It's also your thesis is on our Substack as well, which we'll also link here. So yeah, that event's coming in November. Really exciting. We're also having another event here at Presidio Bitcoin. That's going to be part of our rolling Rolodex of weekly Thursday events that I know you're quite bullish on. And I don't even know if you know this is scheduled yet.
Tell me.
We are doing our first Nostr Dev meetup.
I did know this. Shout out to Dustin. And by the way,
yes,
you want a cool example? Dustin, I knew him from Nostr for years, right? But I just know him as this little JPEG. And he comes to the hackathon, extremely impressive. They built this really cool thing.
Won it or got second? I can't remember exactly, but yeah.
They got second, but the AIs pay humans to do things like fill out captures. Very sci-fi, very cool. Clearly, this dude's super smart.
Yep.
And, I tell everyone that asks me this, well, what's your advice for, whatever, building something? And I was just like, just move here.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, great. Well, Dustin actually did it. He just moved here and kudos to that guy. And then he had the gumption, the whatever desire to start a Nostr Dev, which is awesome. So yeah, I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
I mean, Presidio, Bitcoin feels like the bleeding edge of and being early on so many different things. You mentioned money, you mentioned energy. We just had Eric and Jesse in here talking about privacy and encryption, what that means. That
awesome.
all is all originated in sort of the Bitcoin ethos. And now we have Nostr moving into social networks. So Presidio Bitcoin is not just Bitcoin. It's really these technologies that are permeating across so many different areas. So
totally. And one thing I would just add to that is on the Nostr piece, Nostr is still early, but it is social media to get started with. But the big idea I would hammer home to everyone, something I'm looking to invest very heavily in still for my fund. I mean, energy is something I'm very interested in, traditional Bitcoin payment stuff for sure. But is this idea that Nostr is user-owned identity. So it's somewhat similar to a bearer asset in the same way that, if you own your private key, you own your Bitcoin. In this, it's not exactly the same, but if you can roll a die or a pair of dice in a bathroom and walk out with an identity, a private key. And that's super important because now you own that. It's not generated by a government. It's not generated by a company. And now you can plug that into any number of applications. And so all I would just say there is that the reason I'm so bullish on Nostr is I think it is a substrate for identity and information in which we can rebuild the whole internet with economic incentives using Bitcoin.
Can't wait. You going to be at Nostr Devs?
I'm planning. I mean, it's next Thursday. This
yes.
Thursday?
This Thursday's BitDevs.
Next Thursday, maybe.
Next Thursday, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably.
Max, thanks for being on the show. Great to show the member spotlight, everything you're doing here as being a fantastic member here since the start, but also all the exciting things you're seeing happening at Presidio Bitcoin. So please come to one of our meetups. Certainly get in touch. hello@presidiobitcoin.org. You can find Max, myself, at any of our events. Otherwise, please stop by. We share all of our public meetups on meetup.com or Luma. So thanks again, Max.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.